Let's talk about some of the basic structures and concepts we're going to be using. First of all, let's talk about how do you grip this big knife. One of the grips you'll see in Keating's system is he likes to grip way back here with a saber grip because he does a lot of thrust-based things, and that gives you a little more extension with the knife and nice comfortable spot for your thumb because it's not buttoned up against the guard, and putting that guard as far away from your hand as possible makes it easier for that guard to protect against cuts. If I'm real up close to the guard and something's coming at me, it can still reach my hand or finger. If I'm back here, it's a lot less likely to reach my hand or finger. So this is more protective to be way back here. I don't use that guard as much because I do a lot of cutting and less thrusting maybe. So the grip I like to use is to use the full handle. Okay? So basic grip is called hammer grip because it's just like you would hold a hammer if you were pounding something, just your basic grip. You're using these three fingers are your power grip, and then these are kind of loose to control. In any kind of grip, these fingers are your power grip. If you think about it, when you carry a suitcase or a briefcase or something, you're carrying it with these hands. You don't carry it like this, right? Power grip is with these fingers. So I can grab hold of this blade and I cannot even contact with my thumb and index finger, and I've still got a powerful, strong, sturdy grip with that power grip. Now, the Hell's Bell has these rivets, and these are not just for decoration. These rivets are designed to help give you some purchase and to catch your hand on. You also notice this coffin hilt is narrow, and then it gets wider, and so again, that's so if the knife is kind of moving forward through your hand, as it flares at the base, you've got a better grip, and you've got those rivets to kind of latch onto. These rivets up here are very important too, because one of the other grips I like to use, I call the pinch grip, where I'm pinching the knife basically to my thumb and my hand, like that. And you see how that catches that rivet on either side right there. And that pinch grip, I can still get a pretty powerful grip just using that, right? It's not going anywhere. That's a pretty powerful grip. But notice how much snap it lets me develop in my motion of my knife because it's pivoting around this spot with this pinch grip. And so I don't do it like this. I do it with my finger still in contact, but I've gone from a powerful grip, a power grip, to the pinch grip where this is relatively loose, and now I've got most of my power here. So now I've got that finesse and that snap and that ability to move the blade because it's pivoting with my pinch grip. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Pinch grip and a power grip. Okay? Another one I use a lot, I call the side grip. It's where you've turned the knife and my thumb is bracing against the guard or the flat of the blade. And this is an important one for when you're using the blade to parry, right? I don't want to parry edge to edge and have my edge destroyed. I'm going to parry flat to edge. And when I have the blade in my hand and I turn it, you can see how that just naturally puts my thumb in that position with the edge coming back. And that's a very strong, powerful position. So if something's coming in, I can take a hell of a smack against the flat of the blade and then just flow right into my response. And even some of my cuts, my back cuts and such, can be done from this grip, which we'll see when we do the back cut portion. You'll also see historical references where they'll talk about, oh, and a Bowie knife fighter that knew what he was doing would hold his blade edge up and held low so that he could disembowel as an opponent. And these were just the writers of the day. I really don't think anybody took and flipped their Bowie knife around and held it this way. That just doesn't make sense. What they were doing is they had a grip like this, and then they turned it where the edge was up. They used that side grip. So now my edge is up, and if I'm holding low, then I can cut upward and still be able to use all of my other cuts too, right? So that's what they were doing, a side grip. They didn't flip the knife around and hold it like that. Okay? So, a power grip, pinch grip, side grip. We also still use the saber grip for thrusting, but I like to brace against the crossguard like this, a saber grip. So that way I can come up with my different thrusts, and I can also go right back to that pinch grip and just flow right from one thing to the other, saber grip to a pinch grip to a power grip. You just get used to that finesse, being able to switch from one grip to the other with a knife. Okay. Now we have to talk about the guard, right? Basic stance. This basic stance is a very athletic stance, right? I'm not going to stand like a traditional swordsman. It's more like a modern day boxer where most of your weight's on your front leg, your rear heel is up, you're more or less square, my feet are a little bit wider than hip width, this blade is up and it's held kind of in close to my body and just kind of not up high in front of my shoulder but kind of down in front of my shoulder so that the spine of the blade is in line with my shoulder, at my right shoulder, right? So this way it's ready to go, right? I can thrust, I can snap, it's ready to go. I don't extend it out here unless I'm using it as a bait because that is a target. So you can imagine, I'm here, if I've got a guy holding his arm out like that in an extended guard, man, that's what I'm looking for, to be able to snap out and whop, hit it. So you keep the hand back. This hand comes into play. It's not like fencing where it stays back here and never does anything. This check hand or a live hand is going to come in as a counterbalance when I'm at one range, and it's going to come in to actually touch and check when I'm at another range. So you'll see us using the check hand a lot. So this is much more like a boxer's athletic position where he's ready to jab and do things, right? It's just, I've got my knife in my hand, so now I'm doing the equivalent of jabs. So it's this kind of position. Now, the shoulders and the hips, that's for reference points. So sometime as we're moving, we might end up here. And so I may pause here momentarily before I go into something else. So you don't really consider this a stance or a ready position, but it's just a reference point that I may then move from. Same way I might have done something and ended up at the hip, or the hip this way. So now I pause for a second just before I move into something else. Or I might have come down at this hip, right? Down here before I launch a thrust. So those four reference points are important, with the right shoulder being the main spot where this blade is going to be working from. Okay? Another thing to consider is what I call the box. Most of your techniques you want to keep inside the box, and that helps you prevent from overextending yourself. So the box is going to be relatively my shoulder width, a little bit wider, a little higher than my eyebrows, and about down to my groin. And so when I keep things inside the box, it means that if I'm going to make a cut, I'm going to reach out, right? I'm staying inside the confines of my box, like this. I'm not doing this, right? Now I've gone outside the confine of my box. I stay inside the box. The same way something was coming low, I'm not going to go bend over and reach way down here, because now again I've gone outside my box with my hand. If something's low, I'm going to drop the level of my box because that's faster, it doesn't leave me vulnerable. Something's over here and I'm doing a parry, I'm going to keep it again inside my box. I'm not going to reach out here like this because that's going to get me in trouble. We'll see later as we're going through the defenses. So again, everything stays inside my box. That way I keep it tight and I keep economical. Now, another topic to consider are striking angles. A lot of people use numbered striking angles. You know, throw an angle number 1, throw an angle number 5. This dates back in Western swordsmanship hundreds and hundreds of years. When the Spanish occupied the Philippines, the Filipinos picked up on that and it became part of Filipino martial arts. So a lot of Filipino martial arts also use numbered angles of attack. The problem is it's not consistent. People don't always use the same angled attacks. So let's say you learn Inosanto's system and he's got his set of 12 angles, and then you learn Kali Illustrissimo, which has a different set of 12 angles. It starts getting very confusing. And then you read an old saber manual, and Jim Keating took a lot of techniques from old saber manuals. They have numbered angles of attack, which are different again. So it gets very, very confusing. Somebody says, okay, throw an angle number 3. Well, an angle number 3 from which system are you talking about, right? So this is where we incorporate something from Markita Kali. Doug Markita is a genius, and you know it's genius when you look at something and you say, oh, why the hell didn't I think of that? That's genius, right? So Markita threw away the whole idea of specific numbered angles, and he just uses the clock system. So you imagine, as I'm facing a wall, there's a clock on that wall, and I'm looking at the clock. And so now, if I throw a strike, I can throw it along 1 o'clock, I can throw it along 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 11 o'clock, straight down is 12 o'clock, straight up is 6 o'clock, an angle this way is 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock. And so now, it makes much more sense if I tell somebody, okay, throw me a strike at 1 o'clock. Everybody knows, okay, 1 o'clock, there it is, right? Just like the clock was on the wall. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got it taped out here, and that really helps your practice. But then tape it out somewhere, line up with it, and practice the tip of the knife, tracing out that angle specifically, and thinking about what you're doing. Because when we cut with a knife, we're not cutting like this, right? You cut with the distal portion of the knife. It's out here. So when you're tracing these angles, you trace them with the point. And so it really helps to have that taped out on the wall, and then practice your cuts. 1, 11, 3, 9, 5, 7, 12, 6, 1, 11, 3, 9. And then you can come up with your own combinations. You can just think of something. I'm going to do 11, 7, 9. There's 11, 7, 9. I'm going to do 1, 3, 7. Okay, here's 1, 3, 7. And you can just put together combinations that way. You can also think of it as an entry point and an exit point. So I'm going to enter on 1 and exit on 3. I'm going to enter on 9 and exit on 7. I'm going to enter on 5 and exit on 3. So then that starts creating these finessey kind of motions that you can practice when you're doing all this. So using those clock angles is what we do. Now, Doug Markita also teaches to take that clock face, now flip it down and put it on the ground. So now I'm standing in the center of this clock face in relation to my opponent. So now I can talk about my footwork. So I can talk about stepping in at 1 o'clock on the clock face. I can talk about stepping back at 5 o'clock on the clock face. I can talk about stepping out at 3. I can talk about a side step at 9 o'clock. I can talk about stepping back at 7 o'clock this way. So now, again, using the clock system, everybody's kind of in tune because everybody knows the clock face, and it's a lot easier to talk about what you're doing. So that's one of the things we incorporate from Markita Kali. So we've covered grips, basic stance, basic structure, the box, center line, the numbered angles. We'll go from there.